Good morning, eighth graders. Happy Friday. It's finally here. Hopefully you are all caught up on your work and you have nothing to worry about this weekend besides relaxing and having fun. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today is, Friday, October 9th, and I just realized I need to put up today's chapter on our planner. I might have done on the regular planner, but I'll take care of it before you see this video. All right, so actually, let me go back to that planner really quick. So your Outsiders chapter 9 questions, you need to do those today. Then you're going to submit 5 through 9, as well as your weekly checkout and your objective summary. So all of those things need to be turned in today. All right, so our book talk today is called Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. This story is about a kid who, he's in 8th grade, and he just kind of lives a normal life. He plays drums in his school band. He also has a little brother who's super cute but annoying and just kind of a typical family until his brother gets cancer. And so it's about how his family deals with everything, how he deals with everything from middle school being hard enough to deal with in life to also having a little brother who has a life-threatening disease. So anyway, this book is just really well written. It's funny, but feeling stuff like that, kind of like Fault in Our Stars, only not with the like romance issue or angle. So anyway, really good book, pretty fast read, pretty short. If you're interested at all, email me and I will put it aside for you. Okay, I went ahead and put the objective summary slides up again, just in case you needed them, so you didn't have to go looking for them too hard. We are reading Outsiders chapter 9 today. It's a big chapter. All the chapters from here on out are pretty interesting with lots going on. So this one, I'm not doing a mini lesson with this today just because it's Friday. I know a lot of you need to catch up with work and stuff like that. So we are just going to read for the enjoyment of it. All right. So go ahead. And if you have the same book I do, please open up to page 131, chapter 9. And even if it's not page 131, it's still chapter 9. I am now going to yawn. Sorry, it's early. Okay. Chapter 9. Where we last left off, Johnny and Dally are in the hospital after saving the kids and Dally saving Johnny from the church fire. The Socs and the Greasers are going to have a big rumble, which is basically just like a huge group fight or melee. And then Cherry she's a Soc, but she's kind of spying on the Greasers or spying on the Socs for the Greasers, telling them what's going on and stuff like that. So chapter 9. It was almost 6:30 when I got home. The rumble was set for 7, so I was late for supper, as usual. I always come in late. I forget what time it is. Derry had cooked dinner, baked chicken and potatoes and corn. 2 chickens, because all 3 of us eat like horses, especially Derry. But although I love baked chicken, I could hardly swallow any. I swallowed 5 aspirins, though, when Derry and Soda weren't looking. I do that all the time because I can't sleep very well at night. Derry thinks I take just 1, but I usually take 4. I figured 5 would help keep me going through the rumble and maybe get rid of my headache. Then I turned to take a shower. I hurried to take a shower and change clothes. Me and Soda and Derry always got spruced up before a rumble. And besides, we wanted to show those Socs that we weren't trash, that we were just as good as they were. Soda, I called from the bathroom. When did you start shaving? When I was 15, he yelled back. When did Derry? When he was 13. Why, you figure on growing a beard for the rumble? Oh, you're funny. We ought to send you into Reader's Digest. I hear they pay a lot for funny things. Soda laughed and went right on playing poker with Steve in the living room. Derry had on a tight black t-shirt that showed every muscle on his chest and even the flat, hard muscles of his stomach. I'd hate to be the Soc who takes a crack at him, I thought, as I pulled on a clean t-shirt and a fresh pair of jeans. I wished my t-shirt was tighter. I have a pretty good build for my size, but I'd lost a lot of weight in Windricksville and it just didn't fit right. It was a chilly night and t-shirts aren't the warmest clothes in the world, but nobody ever gets cold in a rumble. And besides, jackets interfere with your swinging ability. Soda and Steve and I had put more hair oil than was necessary, but we wanted to show that we were greasers. Tonight, we could be proud of it. Greasers may not have much, but they have a rep. That and long hair. What kind of world is it where all I have to be proud of is a reputation for being a hood and greasy hair? I don't want to be a hood, but even if I don't steal things and mug people and get boozed up, I'm marked lousy. Why should I be proud of it? Why should I even pretend to be proud of it? Derry never went in for the long hair. His was short and clean all the time. I sat in the armchair in the living room, waiting for the rest of the outfit to show up. But of course, tonight the only one coming would be Two-Bit. Johnny and Dallas wouldn't show. Soda and Steve were playing cards and arguing as usual. Soda was keeping up a steady stream of wisecracks and clowning, and Steve had turned up the radio so loud that it almost broke my eardrums. Of course, everybody listens to it loud like that, but it just wasn't the best thing for a headache. You like fights, don't you, Soda? I asked suddenly. Yeah, sure, I like fights. How come? I don't know. He looked at me puzzled. It's action. It's a contest, like a drag race or a dance or something. Shoot, said Steve. I want to beat those Socias' heads in. When I get out in a fight, I want to stomp the other guy good. I like it, too. How come you like fights, Derry? I asked, looking up at him as he stood behind me, leaning in the kitchen doorway. He gave me one of those looks that hide what he's thinking, but Soda piped up. He likes to show off his muscles. I'm going to show him off on you, little buddy, if you get any mouthier. I digested what Soda had said. It was the truth. Derry liked anything that took strength, like weightlifting or playing football or roofing houses, even if he was proud of being smart, too. Derry never said anything about it, but I knew he liked fights. I fell out of things. I'll fight anyone, anytime, but I don't like to. I don't know if you ought to be in this rumble, Pony, Derry said slowly. Oh no, I thought in mortal fear. I've got to be in it. Right then, the most important thing in my life was helping us whip the Socias. Don't let him make me stay home now. I've got to be in it. How come? I've always come through before, ain't I? Yeah, Derry said with a proud grin. You fight real good for a kid your size. But you were in shape before. You've lost weight and you don't look so great, kid. You've tensed up too much. Shoot, said Soda, trying to get the ace out of his shoe without Steve seeing him. We all get tensed up before a rumble. Let him fight tonight. Skin never hurt anyone. No weapons, no danger. I'll be okay, I pleaded. I'll get hold of the little one, okay? Well, Johnny won't be there this time. Johnny and I sometimes ganged up on one big guy. But then Curly Shepherd won't be there either, or Dolly, and we'll need every man we can get. What happened to Shepherd? I asked, remembering Tim Shepherd's kid brother Curly, who was a tough, cool, hard as nails Tim in miniature, and I had once played chicken by holding our cigarette ends against each other's fingers. We had stood there, clenching our teeth and grimacing, with sweat pouring down our faces and the smell of burning flesh making us sick, each refusing to holler until Tim happened to stroll by. When he saw that we were really burning holes in each other, he cracked our heads together, swearing to kill us both if we ever pulled a stunt like that again. I still have the scar on my forefinger. Curly was an average downtown hood, tough and not real bright, but I liked him. He could take anything. He's in the cooler, Steve said, kicking the ace out of Soda's shoe, in the reformatory. Again, I thought, and said, let me fight, Derry. If it was blades or chains or something, it'd be different. Nobody ever gets hurt in a skin rumble. Well, Derry gave in. I guess you can, but be careful. And if you get in a jam, holler and I'll get you out. I'll be okay, I said wearily. How come you never worry about Soda Pop as much? I don't see you lecturing him. Man, Derry grinned and put his arm across Soda's shoulders. This is one kid, brother, I don't have to worry about. Soda punched him in the ribs affectionately. This kiddo can use his head. Soda Pop looked down at me with mock superiority, but Derry went on. You can see he uses it for one thing, to grow hair on. He ducked Soda's swing and took off for the door. Two-Bit stuck his head in the door just as Derry went flying out of it. Leaping as he went off the steps, Derry turned a somersault in midair, hit the ground, and bounced up before Soda could catch him. Welp, Two-Bit said cheerfully, cocking an eyebrow. I see we are in prime condition for a rumble. Is everybody happy? Yeah, screamed Soda as he too did a flying somersault off the steps. He flipped up to walk on his hands and then did a no-hands cartwheel across the yard to beat Derry's performance. The excitement was catching. Screeching like an Indian, Steve went running across the lawn in flying leaps, stopped suddenly, and flipped backward. We could all do acrobatics because Derry had taken a course at the Y and then spent a whole summer teaching us everything he'd learned on the grounds that it might come in handy in a fight. It did, but it also got Two-Bit and Soda jailed once. They were doing mid-air flips down a downtown sidewalk, walking on their hands and otherwise disturbing the public and the police. Leave it to those two to pull something like that. With a happy whoop, I did a no-hands cartwheel off the porch steps, hit the ground, and rolled to my feet. Two-Bit followed me in a similar manner. I'm a greaser, Soda Pop chanted. I am a JD and a hood. I blacken the name of our fair city. I beat people up. I rob gas stations. I am a menace to society, and man, do I have fun. Greaser, 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 Steve sing-songed. Oh, victim of the environment. Underprivileged, rotten, no-count hood. Juvenile delinquent, you're no good, Derry shouted. Get to thee hence, white trash, Two-Bit said in a snobbish voice. I am a soch. I am the privileged and the well-dressed. I throw beer blasts, drive fancy cars, and break windows at fancy parties. And what do you do for fun? I inquired in a serious voice. I jump greasers, Two-Bit screamed and did a cartwheel. So in that part right there, they're just all kind of like making fun of themselves and joking around and just are in a really happy, excited mood. We settled down as we walked to the lot. Two-Bit was the only one wearing a jacket. He had a couple of cans of beer stuffed in it. He always gets high before a rumble. Before anything else, too, come to think of it. I shook my head. I'd hate to see the day when I had to get my nerve from a can. I'd tried drinking once before. The stuff tasted awful. I got sick, had a headache, and when Derry found out, he grounded me for 2 weeks. But that was the last time I'd ever drink. I'd seen too much of what drinking did for you over at Johnny's house. Hey, Two-Bit, I said, deciding to complete my survey. How come you like to fight? He looked at me as if I was off my nut. Shoot, everybody fights. If everybody jumped in the Arkansas River, old Two-Bit would be right on their heels. I had it then. Soda fought for fun, Steve for hatred, Derry for pride, and Two-Bit for conformity. Why do I fight, I thought, and couldn't think of any real good reason. There isn't any real reason to fight, except self-defense. Listen, Soda, you and Pony Boy, Derry said as we strode down the street. If the fuzz show, you two beat it out of there. The rest of us can only get jailed. You two can get sent to a boys' home. Nobody in this neighborhood's going to call the fuzz, Steve said grimly. They'd know what happened if they did. All the same, you two blow at the first sign of trouble, you hear me? Sure don't need an amplifier, Soda said, and stuck his tongue out at the back of Derry's head. I stifled a giggle. If you want to see something funny, it's a tough hood sticking his tongue out at his big brother. All right, next page. Tim Shepard and company were already waiting when we arrived at the vacant lot, along with the gang from Brumley, one of the suburbs. Tim was a lean, cat-like 18-year-old who looked like the model JD you see in movies and magazines. He had the right curly black hair, smoldering dark eyes, and a scar from temple to chin where a tramp had belted him with a broken pop bottle. He had a tough, hard look to him, and his nose had been broken twice. Like Dally's, his smile was grim and bitter. He was one of those that enjoy being a hood. The rest of his bunch were the same way. The boys from Brumley, too. Young hoods who would grow up to be old hoods. I never thought about it before, but they'd just get worse as they got older, not better. I looked at Derry. He wasn't going to be any hood when he got old. He was going to get somewhere. Living the way we do would only make him more determined to get somewhere. That's why he's better than the rest of us, I thought. He's going somewhere, and I was going to be like him. I wasn't going to live in a lousy neighborhood all my life. Tim had the tense, hungry look of an alley cat. That's what he's always reminded me of, an alley cat, and he was constantly restless. His boys ranged from 15 to 19, hard-looking characters who were used to the strict discipline Tim gave out. That was the difference between his gang and ours. They had a leader and were organized. We were just buddies who stuck together. Each man was his own leader. Maybe that was why we could whip them. Tim and the leader of the Brumley outfit moved forward to shake hands with each of us, proving that our gangs were on the same side in this fight, although most of the guys in those two outfits weren't exactly what I'd like to call my friends. When Tim got to me, he studied me, maybe remembering how his kid brother and I had played chicken. You and that quiet black-headed kid were the ones who killed that Soch? Yeah, I said, pretending to be proud of it. Then I thought of Cherry and Randy and got a sick feeling in my stomach. Good going, kid. Curly always said you were a good kid. Curly's in the reformatory for the next 6 months. Tim grinned ruefully, probably thinking of his rough-neck, hard-headed brother. He got caught breaking into a liquor store, the little... He went on to call Curly every unprintable name under the sun, in Tim's way of thinking, terms of affection. I surveyed the scene with pride. I was the youngest there. Even Curly, if he had been there, had turned 15, so he was older than me. I could tell Derry realized this too, and although he was proud, I also knew he was worried. Shoot, I thought, I'll fight so good this time he won't ever worry about me again. I'll show him that someone besides Soda Pop can use his head. One of the Brumley guys waved me over. We mostly stuck with our own outfits, so I was a little leery of going over to him, but I shrugged. He asked to borrow a weed, then lit up. That big guy with y'all, you know him pretty well? I ought to. He's my brother, I said. I couldn't honestly say yes. I knew Derry as well as he knew me, and that isn't saying a whole lot. No kidding? I got a feeling he's going to be asked to start the fireworks around here. He a pretty good bopper? He meant rumbler. Those Brumley boys have weird vocabularies. I doubt if half of them can read a newspaper or spell much more than their names. And it comes out in their speech. I mean, you take a guy that calls a rumble bop action, and you can tell he isn't real educated. Yep, I said, but why him? He shrugged. Why anybody else? I looked our outfits over. Most greasers don't have real tough builds or anything. They're mostly lean and kind of panther-looking in a slouchy way. This is partly because they don't eat much, and partly because they're slouchy. Derry looked like he could whip anyone there. I think most of the guys were nervous because of the no weapons rule. I don't know about the Brumley boys, but I knew Shepard's gang were used to fighting with anything they could get their hands on. Bicycle chains, blades, pop bottles, pieces of pipe, pool sticks, and sometimes even heaters. I mean guns. I have kind of a lousy vocabulary too, even if I am educated. Our gang never went in for weapons. We're just not that rough. The only weapons we ever used were knives, and shoot, we carried those mostly just for looks. Like Two-Bit with his black-handled switch. None of us had ever really hurt anybody or wanted to. Just Johnny, and he hadn't wanted to. Hey, Curtis, Tim yelled. I jumped. Which one? I heard Soda yell back. The big one. Come on over here. The guy from Brumley looked at me. What'd I tell ya? I watched Derry going toward Tim and the leader of the Brumley boys. He shouldn't be here, I thought suddenly. I shouldn't be here, and Steve shouldn't be here, and Soda shouldn't be here, and Two-Bit shouldn't be here. We're greasers, but not hoods, and we don't belong with this bunch of future convicts. We could end up like them, I thought. We could, and the thought didn't help my headache. I went back to stand with Soda and Steve and Two-Bit then, because the Socs were arriving right on time. They came in 4 carloads and filed out silently. I counted 22 of them. There were 20 of us, so I figured the odds were as even as we could get them. Derry always liked to take on 2 at a time anyway. They looked like they were all cut from the same piece of cloth, clean shaven with semi-beetle haircuts, wearing striped or checkered shirts and light red or tan-colored jackets or Madras ski jackets. They could just as easily have been going to the movies as to a rumble. That's why people don't ever think to blame the Socs and are always ready to jump on us. We look hoodie and they look decent. It could be just the other way around. Half the hoods I know are pretty decent guys underneath all that grease. And from what I've heard, a lot of Socs are just cold-blooded mean. But people usually go by looks. They lined up silently facing us, and we lined up facing them. I looked for Randy, but didn't see him. I hoped he wasn't there. A guy with a Madras shirt stepped up. Let's get the rules straight. Nothing but our fists, and the first to run lose. Right? Tim flipped away his beer can. You savvy real good. There was an uneasy silence. Who was going to start it? Derry solved the problem. He stepped forward under the circle of light made by the street lamp. For a minute, everything looked unreal, like a scene out of a J.D. movie or something. Then Derry said, I'll take on anyone. He stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, his muscles taut under his t-shirt and his eyes glittering like ice. For a second, it looked like there wasn't anyone brave enough to take him on. Then there was a slight stir in the faceless mob of Socs, and a husky blonde guy stepped forward. He looked at Derry and said quietly, Hello, Daryl. Something flickered behind Derry's eyes, then they were ice again. Hello, Paul. I heard Soda give a kind of squeak, and I realized the blonde was Paul Holden. He had been the best halfback on Derry's football team at high school, and he and Derry used to buddy it around all the time. He must be a junior in college by now, I thought. He was looking at Derry with an expression I couldn't quite place, but disliked. Contempt, pity, hate, all 3. Why? Because Derry was standing there representing all of us, and maybe Paul felt only contempt and pity and hate for greasers. Derry hadn't moved a muscle or changed expression, but you could see he hated Paul now. It wasn't only jealousy. Derry had the right to be jealous. He was ashamed to be on our side, ashamed to be seen with the Brumley boys, Shepard's gang, maybe even us. Nobody realized it but me and Soda. Didn't matter to anyone but me and Soda. That's stupid, I thought swiftly. They've both come here to fight, and they're both supposed to be smarter than that. What difference does the side make? Then Paul said, I'll take you, and something like a smile crossed Derry's face. I knew that Derry had thought he could take Paul any time. But that was 2 or 3 years ago. What if Paul was better now? I swallowed. Neither of my brothers had ever been beaten in a fight, but I wasn't exactly itching for someone to break the record. They moved in a circle under the light, counterclockwise, eyeing each other, sizing each other up, maybe remembering old faults and wondering if they were still there. The rest of us waited with mounting tension. I was reminded of Jack London's books, where the wolf pack waits in silence for one of 2 members to go down in a fight. But it was different here. The moment either one swung a punch, the rumble would be on. The silence grew heavier, and I could hear the harsh, heavy breathing of the boys around me. Still, Derry and the Soc walked slowly in a circle. Even I could feel their hatred. They used to be buddies, I thought. They used to be friends. And now they hate each other because one has to work for a living and the other comes from the West Side. They shouldn't hate each other. I don't hate the Socs anymore. They shouldn't hate. Hold up, a familiar voice yelled. Hold it! Derry turned to see who it was, and Paul swung, a hard right to the jaw that it would have felled anyone but Derry. The rumble was on. Dallas Winston ran to join us. I couldn't find a Soc my size, so I took the next best size and jumped on him. Dallas was right beside me, already on top of someone. I thought you were in the hospital, I yelled as the Soc knocked me to the ground, and I rolled to avoid getting kicked. I was. Dally was having a hard time because his left arm was still in bad shape. I ain't now. How? I managed to ask as the Soc I was fighting leaped on me and rolled near Dally. Talked the nurse into it with two-bit switch. Don't you know a rumble ain't a rumble unless I'm in it? I couldn't answer because the Soc, who was heavier than I took him for, had me pinned and was slugging the sense out of me. I thought dizzily that he was going to knock some of my teeth loose or break my nose or something, and I knew I didn't have a chance. But Derry was keeping an eye out for me. He caught that guy by the shoulder, half lifted him up before knocking him 3 feet with a sledgehammer blow. I decided it would be fair for me to help Dally since he could only use one arm. They were slugging it out, but Dallas was getting the worst of it, so I jumped on his Socia's back, pulling his hair and pounding him. He reached back and caught me by the neck and threw me over his head to the ground. Tim Shepard, who was fighting two at once, accidentally stepped on me, knocking my breath out. I was up again as soon as I got my wind and jumped right back on the Soc, trying my best to strangle him. While he was prying my fingers loose, Dally knocked him backward so that all 3 of us rolled on the ground, gasping, cussing, and punching. Someone kicked me hard in the ribs, and I yelped in spite of myself. Some Soc had knocked out one of our bunch and was kicking me as hard as he could, but I had both arms wrapped around the other Socia's neck and refused to let go. Dally was slugging him, and I hung on desperately, although that other Soc was kicking me, and you'd better believe it hurt. Finally, he kicked me in the head so hard it stunned me, and I lay limp, trying to clear my mind and keep from blacking out. I could hear the racket, but only dimly through the buzzing in my ears. Numerous bruises along my back and on my face were throbbing, but I felt detached from the pain, as if it wasn't really me feeling it. They're running, I heard a voice yell joyfully. Look at the dirty beep run. It seemed to me that the voice belonged to Two-Bit, but I couldn't be sure. I tried to sit up and saw that the Socias were getting into their cars and leaving. Tim Shepard was swearing blue and green because his nose was broken again, and the leader of the Brumley boys was working over one of his own men because he had broken the rules and used a piece of pipe in the fighting. Steve lay doubled over and groaning about 10 feet from me. We found out later that he had 3 broken ribs. Soda Pop was beside him, talking in a low, steady voice. I did a double take when I saw Two-Bit. Blood was streaming down one side of his face, and one hand was busted wide open. But he was grinning happily because the Socias were running. Sorry. We won, Derry announced in a tired voice. He was going to have a black eye, and there was a cut across his forehead. We beat the Socias. Dally stood beside me quietly for a moment, trying to grasp the fact that we had really beaten the Socias. Then, grabbing my shirt, he hauled me to my feet. Come on. He half dragged me down the street. We're going to go see Johnny. I tried to run, but stumbled, and Dally impatiently shoved me along. Hurry! He was getting worse when I left. He wants to see you. I don't know how Dallas could travel so fast and hard after being knocked around and having his sore arm hurt some more, but I tried to keep up with him. Track wasn't ever like the running I did that day. I was still dizzy and had only a dim realization of where I was going and why. Dally had Buck Merrill's T-Bird parked in front of our house, and we hopped into it. I sat tight as Dally roared the car down the street. We were on 10th when a siren came on behind us, and I saw the reflection of the red flashing in the windshield. "Look sick," Dally commanded. "I'll say I'm taking you to the hospital, which'll be truth enough." I leaned against the cold glass of the window and tried to look sick, which wasn't too hard, feeling the way I did right then. The policeman looked disgusted. "All right, buddy, where's the fire?" "The kid," Dally jerked a thumb toward me. "He fell over on his motorcycle, and I'm taking him to the hospital." I groaned, and it wasn't all fake out. I guess I looked pretty bad, too, being cut up and bruised like I was. The fuzz changed his tone. "Is he real bad? Do you need an escort?" "How would I know if he's bad or not? I ain't no doc." "Yeah, we could use an escort." And as the policeman got back into his car, I heard Dally hiss, "Sucker." With the siren ahead of us, we made record time getting to the hospital. All the way there, Dally kept talking and talking about something, but I was too dizzy to make most of it out. I was crazy. You know that kid? Crazy for wanting Johnny to stay out of trouble, for not wanting him to get hard. If he'd been like me, he'd never have been in this mess. If he'd got smart like me, he'd never have run into that church. That's what you get for helping people. Editorials in the paper and a lot of trouble. You better wise up, Pony. You get tough like me and you don't get hurt. You look out for yourself and nothing can touch you. He said a lot more stuff, but I didn't get it all. I had a stupid feeling that Dally was out of his mind, the way he kept raving on and on. Because Dallas never talked like that. But I think now I would have understood if I hadn't been so sick at the time. The cop left us at the hospital as Dally pretended to help me out of the car. The minute the cop was gone, Dally let me go so quick I almost fell. "Hurry!" We ran through the lobby and crowded past people in the elevator. Several people yelled at us, I think because we were pretty racked up looking. But Dally had nothing on his mind except Johnny, and I was too mixed up to know anything but that I had to follow Dally. When we finally got to Johnny's room, the doctor stopped us. "I'm sorry, boys, but he's dying." "We gotta see him," Dally said, and flicked out Two-Bit's switchblade. His voice was shaking. "We're gonna see him, and if you give me any static, you'll end up on your own operating table." The doctor didn't bat an eye. "You can see him, but it's because you're his friends, not because of that knife." Dally looked at him for a second, then put the knife back in his pocket. We both went into Johnny's room, standing there for a second, getting our breath back in heavy gulps. It was awful quiet. It was scary quiet. I looked at Johnny. He was very still, and for a moment I thought in agony. He's dead already. We're too late. Dally swallowed, wiping the sweat off his upper lip. "Johnny Cake," he said in a hoarse whisper. "Johnny?" Johnny stirred weakly, then opened his eyes. "Hey," he managed softly. "We won," Dally panted. "We beat the Socs. We stomped them, chased them out of our territory." Johnny didn't even try to grin at him. Useless. Fighting's no good. He was awful white. Dally licked his lips nervously. "They're still writing editorials about you in the paper for being a hero and all." He was talking too fast and too calmly. "Yeah, they're calling you a hero now and heroizing all the greasers. We're all proud of you, buddy." Johnny's eyes glowed. Dally was proud of him. That was all Johnny had ever wanted. "Pony boy." I barely heard him. I came closer and leaned over to hear what he was going to say. "Stay gold, Pony boy. Stay gold." The pillow seemed to sink a little, and Johnny died. You read about people looking peacefully asleep when they're dead, but they don't. Johnny just looked dead, a candle with the flame gone. I tried to say something, but I couldn't make a sound. Dally swallowed and reached over to push Johnny's hair back. Never could keep that hair back. That's what you get for trying to help people, you little punk. That's what you get. Whirling suddenly, he slammed back against the wall. His face contracted in agony, and sweat streamed down his face. Damn it, Johnny, he begged, slamming one fist against the wall, hammering it to make it obey his will. Oh, damn it, Johnny, don't die. Please don't die. He suddenly bolted through the door and down the hall. All right, so that was chapter 9. Like I said earlier, there's still lots of action to come in the last 3 chapters, but for now, you guys need to go into Otis. You need to answer the chapter 9 questions and submit the assessment. You need to submit your objective summary if you haven't yet, and you need to fill out and submit your weekly checkout. Okay, have a wonderful weekend. I will see you next week. I hope you have a great day today too.